If burnout looked obvious, most of us wouldn't have waited so long to fall apart, but it doesn't. Sometimes it looks like being tired all the time. Sometimes it feels like numbness. And sometimes it's holding everything together until you can't anymore. I'm Tara, and this is the Soft Rebellion Club, where we help people put their mental health first without burning every bridge or losing their income. I left my six-figure construction career after 15 years of anxiety, burnout, and slowly unraveling. And now I help people navigate medical leave, ADA accommodations, and boundaries that actually work. Today, I'm sitting down with somebody who has this rare gift. The moment you meet her, you just feel at ease. Kim Griffith is a licensed professional clinical counselor and supervisor at a private practice. She's spent her career helping people heal from stress, anxiety, eating disorders, and relationship struggles, with a whole lot of humor and humanity in the mix. She's here today to help us unpack burnout, therapy myths, and what it actually means to rest without guilt. Kim, thank you so much for being here. We're going to get kicked off with the first question. What does burnout look like in people who don't realize they're burnt out?
Sure. Well, also, first, thank you for having me. Really appreciate that. So, basically, burnout doesn't just happen instantaneously. There's phases that people go through, and usually it's happening and you don't even realize it. So, the first stage or phase is what we would call the honeymoon phase. So, here, things feel really good. It's the I want to prove myself phase. I can do this. They're going to love me. I have all the energy, all the new ideas. And so we're really motivated to do a good job here, if that makes sense.
Totally. Sounds like me at the beginning of my career. Okay.
Yes. After a while, we can then move into a stage of onset of stress stage. This is where we start to neglect our self-care. It's harder to focus and concentrate and be as productive as you'd like to be at work. After that, then we kind of move into this chronic stress phase. This is where you're constantly tired, really apathetic, starting to get really checked out. And this is also where you'll start to see people engage in different behaviors, such as like self-medicating, could be like alcohol, drugs, excessive spending, turning to food. This could be emotional eating, because we're trying to make ourselves feel better at this point, because we're kind of always in this like state of stress. When we have this chronic toxic stress, it's usually our nervous system's going through too much for too long, not enough for too long, or too much too fast.
Yeah.
So these are things that are going on for us when we're in this stage. Then we can kind of slide over into burnout. And this is where we are now socially isolating, have all sorts of self-doubt. We're really neglecting our personal health. We could be having like manifesting physical symptoms, headaches, digestive issues, trouble breathing. We're not going to the doctor, taking care of it. We are being really neglectful, and then ultimately go into habitual burnout. This is where we might be clinically depressed. It looks like overlap with major depressive disorder. This is really serious.
I resonated with every stage that you mentioned, so that makes perfect sense of why we're here now talking about it. Thank you for going through that. That was really interesting. Something that I want to look into more than the stages of burnout, because I didn't realize the breakdown. My next question is, what's the difference between a boundary and just ghosting your job? Asking for a friend.
Yeah, sure. So boundaries, that's a term that tends to scare a lot of people. People look at it as though I'm doing something to someone else. Really, boundaries are all about protection. They're
Sorry, the cat.
We may or may not just have kicked a cat. So boundaries are all about protection, protecting your time, protecting your emotions. It's really about you and has very little to actually do with the other person. But a lot of people see it as I'm doing something to someone that's going to upset them. They're going to be disappointed in me. And while those things are very possible, we actually aren't doing anything to anyone else. This is, when we set boundaries, we're creating limits of what we're willing to do and not do based off like what we know is the healthiest for us. And that may not always be in your employer's best interest.
Yeah, that's really insightful. A couple different things that come to mind. Like you said, the boundary is not about them, but that's, I feel like, what I was always thinking about is what's my coworker going to think? What's my boss going to think? What's the client going to think? So it's interesting that a lot of people are thinking of it the opposite way when it's really about what do you need?
Absolutely. And like, to validate that, that is a real concern, because if you're someone who struggles to set boundaries and you start trying to implement this behavior, I mean, you're setting them for a reason. So a lot of the people that you're setting them with might really not like it, and they might be confused and they might lash out, almost think adult temper tantrum. And that's a hard thing to sit with. So part of this work is learning, how do I tolerate that and how do I sit with that? Because your worst fears might I can't say to you, oh, that's not going to happen. It very well could.
Yeah. We often talk about people's resistance of reaching out to a therapist because it sounds to me that this issue is exactly something that a therapist would help them work through, and not something that I can just pick up one day and say, I'm going to start setting boundaries now, because I literally don't know how to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, this isn't like I'm going to tell myself I can do this and then I just do it. Especially if I'm going to bring in childhood trauma stuff, but especially if you've had relationships in your life, in younger years, experiences where there was conditional love, you had to earn care, affection, there's emotional neglect. You're not going to feel safe or comfortable trying to set a boundary. And if you do, and you manage somehow, some way to do that, you're probably not going to adhere to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've lost.
You're back to square one.
You're back to square one. Absolutely.
All right. What is the deal with fawning, and how does it show up at work?
Fawning is similar to people pleasing. Usually, when you think about fawning, kind of like what I was referencing when we talked about boundaries, it's really something that you've grown accustomed to doing based off experiences you've had in your life where you have not felt safe, whether that's emotionally, physically. You have learned to prioritize other people's needs, desires, preferences over your own at a great cost to yourself. And a lot of this is your nervous system. Literally, experiences you've had get stuck in your nervous system. So that's why when somebody asks you something that you know you're not comfortable doing, how many times have you went ahead and did it? You override what your body's telling you, right? It's in your nervous system, like,
Yeah.
ooh, this reminds me of that other time. That didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You override that because everyone else on my team seems to be just fine with these deadlines, expectations. This is the culture.
Yep.
Turn out as much work as you can in a day. This is all very cognitive, and we're neglecting what our feelings, body, like our whole nervous system is telling us. We do this all the time.
Yeah. So it's past conditioning keeps you stuck in that rut.
Absolutely.
Such a perfect segue into the question, why toughing it out is such a bad coping strategy, but also so tempting.
Toughing it out kind of reinforces this culture we have about working as fast as your peers, as much as your peers, keeping up. This comparison culture, which may not be you doing what's best for you and what you need, and really honoring that.
Yeah.
It's really tempting because you're doing it, you're getting something from that. You're probably getting praise. You might be getting promotions. You're getting fed messages that this is good, even if you're internally struggling. It's hard as somebody who maybe a people pleaser, doesn't want to disappoint. It's hard to stop doing that. Unfortunately, though, the more we do that, we then move through these stages of burnout because, again, we're overriding what our nervous system's telling us, and our nervous system has all the information that we need. We just don't listen to it most of the time.
Yeah, because it's like we feel like we can't, or we don't have the skills to stand up against it.
Absolutely.
What are some myths about therapy that make people avoid it?
Oh, I got a lot on this one, Tara. So people are like terrified of us a lot of the time. if you're not used to therapy and therapy culture, a lot of times people think they're going to be judged. And so what I want to say to this is, are there some therapists out there who can be judgmental? Absolutely. However, there are some really awesome therapists out there. You know, part of it is finding a therapist who's a good fit for you, and that can be a process, not necessarily on the first go. But I mean, yeah, people are worried they're going to be judged. People are worried that if I go to a therapist, I'm weak or something's wrong with me. I should be able to handle this on my own. You know, where did that rule come from? This might lead to medication. Like, people start to fear, like, if I do that, then before you know it, I'm going to, you know, be doing all these other things I may not be comfortable with. And the reality is again, a good therapist is really there to help you better understand your thoughts, your feelings, what's going on in your body. Once you understand those things, you can learn how to work with them and make decisions based off what you want, not what your therapist's agenda is or what your therapist thinks you should do. Your therapist really helps you learn how to access information that's already within you. You just are having a hard time finding it. And you'll learn coping skills and have outside alternative perspectives that you're just not going to get because you don't know the questions to ask.
Right. One of the things I think people get hung up on when they're avoiding therapists is they think it's too big of a time commitment and they don't want to waste time.
I've had clients email me questions before about my therapy style, what to expect, do I give homework? You know, I've also had people request a brief phone consultation. Some therapists will talk to you for 10-15 minutes just to answer any preliminary questions you have or give you a sense of kind of what they're about, what to expect. If a therapist isn't willing to do that and that's something you feel that would be reassuring or comforting, then that might just not be the therapist for you.
Along those lines, what do you say to somebody that's like had a bad experience and now they're just reluctant to try it again?
Sure. I mean, that's super fair. And I mean, I'll give an analogy. If you go out to eat and you have a bad experience at a restaurant, you're probably not going to return to that restaurant, or you might think twice, but that doesn't mean you stop going out to eat altogether.
Sure.
So there you have it.
Yeah. Kim, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your insight with such compassion and clarity. I know this conversation is going to land with so many people who have been feeling burnt out, frozen, or like they're supposed to push through something that their body is telling them to pause for. Before we go, is there one last piece of advice that you'd like to leave for the Soft Rebellion community?
I would say you're not alone. Just know that. And you're not considered weak if you want to get some extra help. If you're feeling burned out, really, it's, I would say, pretty necessary to get extra help. That's a very difficult thing to manage on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you watching, if something in this conversation hit home, do not ignore it. I've got free guides and step-by-step support for navigating mental health leave, accommodations, and burnout recovery. You can find everything in the link in the description. And if you know somebody that's been crying in their car in between meetings, please send them this video. They don't need to figure it out alone, as Kim has said. Thank you so much for being here. You really were the perfect first guest for the Soft Rebellion Club channel.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Kim Griffith is a licensed professional. Why can't I get the third word? Clinical counselor. Okay, I'm going to do it. Kim Griffith is a Gosh, why is it so long? Kim Griffith. Nope.
Kim Griffith sucks.
Too long of a title. All right, so,
Hudson, stop.
What was I going to ask you?
Oh, sweetie, you're shedding everywhere. Oh my goodness, you are shedding everywhere.
Hudson, you're so cute.
I'm shedding everywhere.
Oh, see you later. See you later, Gator. You're so cute.
Good boy.
You're so cute.
Good boy. That was good.
Was it?
He loves you.
Oh, all right. So, and now I forgot what I was doing. Is it wine time? You can watch me. I have to do one more take. I'm sorry. Yes. Job well done.